Tell me what you see when you look at me. Do you see another brother lost in these streets looking for his soul?
Trying to find my soul.
Or do you see another brother searching for lost souls in these streets? A street soldier.
Street soldier.
Here to help you get that chip off your shoulder, warm your colder days and sober your drunken ways, and find a way to help you get over these hurdles placed in our path. And this is not meant to amuse you. This is for all those who have questions but are afraid to ask.
I won't be afraid. I won't be afraid. No. When times get hard, you lose your way. Open your mind and hear what I say.
This is a message for the hard and the soft. To those who tune in weekly and to those who keep an eye out for 8 p.m. on Sundays and turn their radios off. The truth hurts. The cloth has been pulled. We're walking around half dead. Use this show as your IV. Alive and Free is a new movement. We've achieved self-destruction. A street soldier promotes self-improvement.
Streets couldn't be no colder, so I gotta be a soldier. It shouldn't be this hard for me. Even when it seems so hopeless, I gotta keep my focus. I'm glad to be alive and free, yeah. Streets couldn't be no colder, so I gotta be a soldier. It shouldn't be this hard for me. Even when it seems so hopeless, I gotta keep my focus. I'm glad to be alive and free, yeah.
And you know, we've been feeling really, really good because this year we hit 250 college graduates. And I've been framing that as we kept our word. Because, you know, when you open your big mouth and tell young people from the block that you're going to send them to college and you ain't got no money, you got to believe in a higher power and your grandmother. And that's who I believed in. And so I've been saying God is good all the time. But Lady Estelle, this is for you because a couple of these, 2 of the 250 just said to me, and they want me to pass it on to you, I'm staying alive and free. Tell Mr. Estelle that 10 years ago this month, you changed my life alive and free by sending me to Hawaii to go to college. Please know how truly grateful I am to you and my beautiful Mr. Estelle for always taking care of me. So Lady Estelle, I want you to hear that. And I got one more. This stuff just comes in. This is just breaking. That was from Alicia Marie, Lady Estelle. Oh, anytime we'll remember her. We'll get to that one. We'll get to that. And then there's one more. I just got this. You know, hi, Dr. Him, how are you? I want to let you know that I finally made it to medical school this year as the class of 2024. I'll be attending New York College of Podiatric Medicine in New York this fall. My first day of classes are going to start Thursday, August the 20th. I wouldn't have stayed as focused as I am today without the teaching of Alive and Free. That's Sinai Dennis, who went to San Francisco State and is on her way to becoming a doctor. We got a couple of them, so we are feeling good. Obviously, you can't tell me nothing. Thank you, Fillmore. And let's jump into this topic. What a beautiful, you should see what I get to see. I get to see all of you. And when I put this thing together, I wanted some folks, you know, to talk this over with. And, you know, obviously I thought about who I was going to select. Not to disparage anyone else, but I said, let's bring this group in and talk about it. Knowing it will not be the last time that we talk about it. I wanted a range of folks. So, I got a youth voice, and my main youth voice, I'm gonna introduce them one at a time because I have whenever we do these conversations, it's like the family sitting around the dining room table, right? And so I got the family here. So I'm gonna start with my young folks first. Malcolm Mobley, raise your hand. All right, that's Malcolm. Malcolm is at, he can take more, but I'll say he's at Morgan State. Nashira Talley, raise your hand. All right. She is at San Jose State because really anything that we say, they're going to check anyway. So I got to get the young people in there right away. And I got an alumni, one of the 250, Lydia Blanco, raise your hand. There she is. Somebody who who I just like for a minute, more than a minute, used to come to the club, and I'm gonna let each of them tell you what they're doing now because they're all very accomplished. He's in Dallas, Texas, and he's coming in from Dallas, Texas. Victor Johnson, raise your hand. Vic, I can't see him, but I know he's there. This man, I love. I'll just say Kino Carson. He's there. He's gonna tell you what he does. There he is. What's up, Kino?
What's going on?
Right in the center of my square is Alicia Marie's favorite guy. Because he was there the night he came to the First Up Radio Show, Mr. Enitan Bereola. All right. Now, I'm going to let each of you talk about what you do because I figured I'd pull out the bios. I said, forget it. I'm going to let you floss yourselves because you all do wonderful things. It's just that I'm going to have to make it short because all y'all do so much. I won't be able to say we'll never get to this topic. But let's start with Kino. What's up, bro?
What's going on? Can you hear me, Doc?
Got you, man.
Okay, cool. What's going on, man? Appreciate you having me once again. I feel like I'm blessed. I'm celebrity status right now. Better recognize. So just a little bit about myself and what I'm doing right now. Obviously, I've been a school administrator for years, Oakland, much in the OUSD, a lot in the Bay Area. I host the #1 youth step show, the largest youth step show on the West Coast, urban, the best of the Bay. Right now, Urban Heat Academy is I'm the founder and CEO of Urban Heat Academy. And right now we're just fortunate. We're juiced because we finally got a facility. So now we're opening up a youth center for those parents and those people who have to do the distance learning, but parents have to commute back and forth. So basically I'm the hookup right now. So that's what we're doing in a nutshell. That and a whole bunch of other slew of thousands of things, but that's it in a nutshell. And so during this pandemic, I started a little morning mention on my Facebook Live, which is really, really successful. I'm surprised because people want to hear me run my mouth. I don't know why, but cool. I'm cool with it. So that's pretty much it, Doc. I don't know what else you need.
That's it,
you can't
man.
I can't tell you everything.
I picked you up because y'all all doing something. Y'all all doing something. Can't wait for this next step show. Victor Blanco Johnson. What's up, Vic?
Hey, Dr. Marshall, a pleasure to be here, sir. I was one of the, I won't say the original members, but I was one of the 1989, 91 through 91 Omega Boys. So definitely honored to be here with you today. I'm now a published author, real estate investor, credit coach, things like that. I guess the biggest thing I'm excited about right now is we were able to put together a youth program called Create Your Future Self. We're teaching kids about entrepreneurship, credit management, financial literacy, and how to own property, how to become real estate investors and buy in their community. So really excited about that and definitely excited about the conversation today.
Thank you, Vic. I got your book in my office. I got the first 3 chapters. And this is the money man. This man will keep your money right. Let's go to my alumni, Lydia Blanco. Lydia, you look beautiful on camera. What are you using? You got some stuff for me? Because I don't look that good on camera.
A lot of sweat, a lot of Jesus, a lot of water, vitamin E oil.
You look,
and of course, Black-owned beauty products.
You look absolutely beautiful. It's so good to see you.
Okay, I feel like a kid again. But I'm Lydia Blanco. I am a journalist, a content creator, and, a lover of all things Black people and media. I'm really on fire for media literacy. I'm also a podcast host and producer. So that's a little bit about me.
Graduate of Bennett College and Columbia. Got a master's in journalism, right?
Right.
From Columbia University. Girl, you got to put all them out there. Put them out there. All right. Mr. Enitan Bereola. Man, you look smooth in you're looking. I can't grow one of these, man.
Oh my goodness, you look so distinct. Wait a minute. Let me change my view. Oh my goodness, you got the mustache, the beard, you're looking so distinguished. Oh my goodness sakes.
I'm quarantined.
Now he's in Florida, y'all, so he's 3 hours ahead, so he's hanging with us.
Lady Estelle, Dr. Marshall, good to see y'all. Lydia Blanco, what's up? I'm a Black dad. I'm a Black husband. You know, my wife is asleep. I hope she doesn't hear me. I'm a new father. We got a 5-month-old, as well as a 4-year-old. I'm a 3-time best-selling author, as well as a co-founder of a creative agency, amongst many, many other things. But I want to spare you all the time. Those are the basics.
Yeah, man, well, you got a lot of basics. I got all 3 of your books. And,
y'all, FYI, y'all were the first ones to put me on air and like really kind of catapult the whole situation. So this is forever home. I'm happy to be on.
Another reason, I don't know if all of you know each other, but all of you need to know each other. And that's another reason that I did this, because Lydia does great stuff, and all y'all do great stuff, and boom, I know it's going to be a hookup with all of this. All right, Malcolm, I already said what you do, but at least say the year that you at in school.
Yeah, actually, I had a few other things going on this summer too.
Oh, I'm sorry, bro.
No, that's all right. Yeah, like Dr. Marshall said, I'm a electrical and computer engineering major at Morgan State University. This summer, I had the pleasure of being a senior fellow with Mayor London Breed's Opportunities for All program, where I managed a cohort of 160 students learning HTML and CSS coding.
All right.
And I just got inducted into the Honor Society. So it's been a busy summer a little bit. And yeah, that's what I'm up to right now.
That's wonderful. Oh my!
You and brothers and saying I ain't got nothing to do. You got something to do, and you're doing it.
That's wonderful. Congratulations.
All right, Nashira.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nashira Talley. Like Dr. Marshall said, I go to San Jose State University. I will be a 3rd year, and I'm majoring in justice studies with a concentration in criminology, and I'm minoring in philosophy. And at SJSU, I'm on the board for 2 organizations. I am the historian and political director for our Black Student Union, as well as a co-founder and president for our mock trial team. And this Friday was actually the last day of my internship. I got to intern at a law firm in San Francisco called Perkins Coie. So.
Congratulations.
You are all
wonderful.
You're all wonderful. You're doing things, and I knew, just knowing you, I need some really reflective conversations on what's going on now. Originally, I got the idea for this by watching, I don't know how many you saw, Oprah did a piece maybe 3 weeks after George Floyd death called Where Do We Go From Here? And she did part 1 and part 2. I watched it. I said, well, eventually I want to do something like that, but I wanted to wait. And it's a different time now. And so I wanted to, about 3 months since Mr. Floyd's death. And if you're going to say that, we got to throw in, Ahmaud Arbery. I got to throw in Breonna Taylor. And I'll throw in the Christian Cooper. They got a lot of people upset, the Birdwatcher incident also. But obviously we know what happened. It's been called a moment of reckoning in America and literally the world. And I just wanted to see what people thought. When Oprah did the show, there were mass demonstrations everywhere. Those have slowed down. Stuff is still going on. Certain cities, there's a lot going on. But I just wanted your thoughts about the whole thing. Where do you think it is now? Your feelings about it, and don't be shy. Just I really is what you think and how you feel. So, Vic, let's start with you. Just what's going on with you with what's going on here?
Well, definitely, I'm old enough to remember, the whole thing with Rodney King back in 92, 93. And, a lot of, because I'm in the financial world and the real estate investing world, I deal with other cultures, so people that didn't understand why Black people erupted from the George Floyd incident and things like that. And, what I had to explain to them was the whole justice system piece of it. Like, okay, yeah, we see the protests, we see people stepping out that are not Black that are supportive of it, but we're just not, we don't know just yet how this thing plays out. We still got Breonna Taylor's situation out there. We got all these cases that we haven't seen how the justice system works. So On the positive, I will say we've seen things like, I think it's called the Justice and Policing Act of 2020. Kamala Harris was part of that initiative, where they're looking at more video cameras, instantly producing that footage and being able to stop chokeholds and things like that. But I think ultimately for me, I need to be able to see how the mentality changes overall, because we got to change the media. Things that you're doing is great because you're on a national platform, but just the whole image of our people has got to change, because no matter what the laws are that change, we got to get the perception of what Black people are to certain people to change as well. So that would be my first initial thoughts on it.
Great, thank you. Lydia.
I've been real upset. I've also been like in deep meditation and prayer and taking deep breaths. As a member of the media who was heavily active during, what would be like, I don't know, 10th red summer we've experienced as Black people, was difficult, right? To always be on and be in media and have to think of the next headline or the next angle or try to talk to the next person was really frustrating for me. It was also very real. It also affirmed my calling as a storyteller. My aim is to be a responsible reporter with a healing presence, and to be able to do the work has been it's been liberating, right? To be able to not control the narrative, but to be able to tell the story from an authentic perspective. But it's also very tiring. So it's like living these dualities, right? We talk about the media and then being Black people, but when you're both, you just gotta figure it out.
Thank you. Thank you. Kino, you there? Your thoughts, your feelings, your thoughts about the last 3 months. Oh, we got to unmute him. He's not unmuted. There you go. Saw your mouth moving, didn't hear a word. Try it again. There you go. Good. Okay.
Okay, my bad. Well, I've been torn with a lot of the situations that's been going on. There's a part of me that I'm concerned about the awareness and us not, as African American men and women, not understanding the power, the political power, and the movement that we're actually utilizing and not and continuing on with it in the future. So I'm a little concerned that I hope it doesn't die down. I hope we stay steadfast, that we're not just having all of these protests and creating this uproar without having some sort of outcome. And so I don't know who's still the leader involved in making sure that we get some sort of outcome, but just the whole isms that we're facing. We have the racism issue, we have the placism issue, we have the the gender issue where we having people who are of color making moves in big time offices. There's just so many dynamics, and then we have the issue where we need to, as ourselves, reflect on how are we doing things and what moves are we going to take to try and change or rectify or make some sort of contribution or not contribution, but effect. How are we going to move forward from here in terms of what's the plan? I'm not even really sure what the plan is. I started trying to buy up the block to provide housing for people because I can see. So my whole mentality, because of not only the pandemic, but the issues that we have in the struggle with unemployment, I started figuring out, how can I give back to be able to make a different type of change? So that's where I've been at with this whole thing. It's really been difficult. It's really been a challenge.
Yeah. Enitan?
I went silent. And as an artist and a creative, I felt that was a dangerous thing to do because my voice matters in moments like this. But I also realized the importance of stillness and the importance of meditation and prayer and really kind of figuring out where my place is and my voice lands in this moment. And, I observed a lot, and I saw a lot of allyship. I saw a lot of anger. I wanted to make sure that my anger was measured and that it didn't stay in that space. I didn't stay in that headspace, but that anger led to some sort of a solution of some sort. So I was having a lot of conversations behind the scenes, a lot of important conversations and mobilizing people and holding folks accountable. And one thing that I think I landed on is that when you experience restoration, sometimes it's kind of blurry. You can't tell what's going on, right? Like if somebody is constructing something, if someone's building something, you can't tell if it's being constructed or deconstructed, right? Like you can't tell if it's construction or destruction when it's in its initial stages. You know if something's being torn down or built up. And I'm of the firm belief that we're experiencing restoration and we just have to endure. We have to endure. I've never seen it like this. I'm 38 years old, you know, but as far as history goes, nothing has occurred quite like this with all of the support and awareness. So I'm on the optimistic side. And I think that we truly have to endure this difficult time and believe that this is restoration that we're experiencing.
Thank you. Nashira, let's go to my BSU.
Yeah, so similar to everyone on this call, I was angry, like really, really angry. I know I saw the body cam that was released like about a week ago from judge's orders. I don't even think that they would have put it out there if it weren't for the judge. But in the video, he's literally begging for his life, saying, "Please don't shoot me. I just lost my mom." And they're reassuring that they won't kill him with the gun pointed in his face. And I don't know. I just think that one of the biggest issues is that there's such a disconnect between Black people, especially Black men, and law enforcement. And I feel like we have to start asking our questions. Do they want it to be fixed? Because first of all, they stopped covering it in the media. So many places have never stopped protesting, but you don't hear a thing about it in the media. And then it's also, can it be fixed? I think that we need to talk about ways that we should, I know we could probably get into this later, but defunding and demilitarizing the police, because that's the only way to really make a change.
Okay. Malcolm, your thoughts?
Yeah, I 100% agree with Nashira. Like, I feel that a lot of changes need to be put into, you know, the way police are hired. You know, the requirements it takes to be a police officer. You know, it has to go beyond a high school diploma. But yeah, following the murder of George Floyd, man, I saw the world change before my eyes. I saw people from Berlin, you know, the Amish, like they don't even believe in the internet. How do they find out? So I saw so much change going on, and you know, it's a shame that this is what it took. But because of George Floyd, all those people that had to go through those horrible incidents, you know, I'm blessed, you know, to see revolutionary times. You know, that's kind of how I felt about that.
I'm going to read something to you a little bit about it. And this is the other person I had in mind when I saw this. And it will sort of open up the discussion a little bit more. And number one, let's just say to everybody watching and listening, believe me, we ain't going to solve this tonight, and we don't have all the answers, okay? We're giving our thoughts, and everybody has their thoughts about this. And this is this gentleman's thoughts. This is from, I guess, if I want to call my mentor, all right, if I'll use him. It's called, he wrote an article called "Historic Movements Require Constructive Self-Criticism to Enhance Strategic Power." That was his opening statement. Often in important political and social movements, leaders in the movement find themselves at critical crossroads, facing challenges that require urgent attention. Internal self-criticism can enable the movement to process necessary information and feedback from key allies on a real-time basis and enable reformulation of strategy, policy, and communications accordingly. We were confronted by this process over and over again during the Black Freedom Movement of the 1960s, enabling us to achieve more powerful results. This is a situation that I believe exists within the leadership of the Black Lives Matter movement today, a struggle movement which I very strongly support. So that's his opening thing. This is his thoughts. He's putting it out there. And obviously here to reference, this was a guy, you know, depends on when you live. And this is what he wrote. Now I'm gonna tell you who this is. This is Dr. Clarence B. Jones, who was Dr. King's personal attorney. To us, We had him on the show maybe a month and a half ago, to talk about his feelings about it. He was the guy that smuggled the Birmingham letter from Birmingham jail out of the jail. He wrote the first six paragraphs of the "I Have a Dream" speech, and there's a whole so much more. He's an ally of Malcolm X. He knew Malcolm X. He knows all these people that we read about, and he wants this thing to work. And so he says the best thing is to look at it critically. And I thought that was a great thing. We should, it's like we look at our lives critically. You know, we look at everything that we do critically. He put that out there. Is there anything particularly that you have seen? In my opinion, it's sort of, I don't know what the themes are. Maybe we can just start there. What are the themes that have emerged for you in the current movement? And I think we've all said the police. I think that is something that got the whole thing started in the first place, obviously. The issue around policing. Is there anything for you that should be front and center here as we move through the movement? And just jump on it. Just go ahead.
Yeah, I can go. Oh. Okay, I'll go. I would say Black entrepreneurship. Like, ever since the George Floyd case, I've seen a lot of Black people starting businesses, and a lot of people, not just Black people, supporting Black businesses. And I think it's a really good time for us to be putting our own things out there, and making our own money and buying from each other.
Okay. Go ahead, Vic. You wanted to say, Andy, just jump in.
Yeah, that was exactly my point. You know, I study the Black wealth gap a lot, and we make up about 10% of what the Caucasian net worth is. If they're worth 171,000 net worth, we got 17,000 net worth, and that's how we dying. So if we're gonna build something, I think the entrepreneurism is a big part. We're seeing a lot of companies step forward to fund Black businesses. So not only do we want to see ourselves supporting the Black businesses, but everybody else keep dropping money into it. We need to keep that Black dollar circulating so that we can continue to build the net worth. So that's one huge thing we need to see come out of that, is the financial situation get stronger.
Okay, themes for you. Anybody? Kino? Yeah. Oh, you hit it and went away again.
You hear me? What about now?
We got you. Yeah.
Okay, I really agree with what's been said. I really believe that in order to do that, what we're trying to do is change the mindset of how we think, instead of always being like, for example, like, you know, hey, you know, they need to get this for us. We can start saying we can do things ourselves. And I really believe that by creating our own wealth, and the United States has always been about the dollar. Many people have kind of jumped on the Black Lives Matter bandwagon because there is some financial gain you can get from that, depending on what avenue you take from it. But I do think that if we start, you know, looking at things differently, teaching our kids differently, teaching our adults how to recirculate the dollar, like was said earlier, I think once we have revenue and power like that financially, then, you know, we can start then making, you know, a stronger statement.
Okay.
I think
Enitan, yeah.
I think Kino, Victor, Nashira, forgive me, they all kind of hit it on the head. I think essentially it's community. You know, like that's been reinforced for me, and that's including finance, that's including the educational component, that's including the politics. You know, I think we live a shared experience, and some of us started to exist in these silos, right? Like there's the wealthy Black person, there's the creative Black person, there's the disenfranchised. We're all disenfranchised, right? But there's the like lower class. You know, I think collectively we started to look at ourselves and be like, yo, like Afro Latina, whatever. Look at my skin. You know what I'm saying? Like we're Black, right? Like all that other stuff that we kind of use to separate us, that no longer is in play right now. Like community is really the most important component, because that's literally the only leverage we have, and it's the most powerful leverage we have to accomplish all that we're set out to accomplish. Because I mean, you know, like it's obvious when you look historically how important community is. Every time we build, you know, the powers that be destroy what it is that we build. You can look down the history lessons and see that to be the case. So, you're seeing how more powerful we are collectively. When I say community, I mean obviously it's those that share the same skin tone, but also like all of our allies. You know what I mean? Like collectively, we're more powerful. And I wasn't always on the community bandwagon in that sense, so it's something that spoke personally to me.
I love that you said that Enitan, because the first thing that came to mind for me was humanity. I was listening to Reverend Al Sharpton during the homegoing celebration, and one of the things he highlighted was that, you know, there's a George Floyd in every community, right? Every Black community. And when Enitan talked about the classism, I think sometimes we overlook our brothers and our sisters because we are too busy looking straight ahead or tunnel vision and not paying attention. So the humanity piece for me is big. You know, a part of me, and maybe it's like the spiritual sense, right? But spiritual Lydia says, you know, he had to go the way he did so that he can, you know, really show us who we need to be paying more attention to, right? If George Floyd was in the likeness of, you know, the suited and booted and degreed up and had every acumen and a number of acronyms behind his name, or letters behind his name, he probably wouldn't have had the same impact. I think it helps us put a mirror up to ourselves, right? I know there's a George Floyd in my family. That's not his name, but it most definitely holds a mirror up to us about what humanity should look like and how we should band together. Because honestly, when things happen to certain people, we don't care. But when it hits home, it hit home. And I think that's what it did for us this time around.
So these are things I've heard so far. Then please, Malcolm and Nashira, I've heard policing, the theme that has come up during this time, entrepreneurship, humanity, and I'm gonna say, and I want to make sure I get this right, I want to say the word classism. I don't know if I want to say that. Maybe you give me the right word, but I know what you're trying to say. Divisions in the Black community. I think if I can use that phrase for you, and if you got a better one, go ahead. Please give it to me. Nashira and Malcolm, what themes have emerged for you in the past, 3 months?
Actually, in the summer program that I spoke about earlier that I was in, there was we had a roundtable because it was the director of our program let us know that San Francisco was actually planning to reallocate funds from the police department into the African American community in San Francisco, and like the main themes behind that were, you know, to put it into, you know, schools, after school programs, you know, extracurricular activities like other coding camps, boxing gyms, the Boys and Girls Club, you know, just removing all the unnecessary funding from the police into the African American community. And I believe that on top of what Victor and Lydia touched on earlier, as far as, you know, the African American community, like, you know, what are we doing for ourselves? You know, I believe that is a outcome that we should all strive for.
Nashira?
Yeah, you want me to say another one?
Well, no, if it's the same one, that's fine. I don't want to make up one, but you know, themes that have come up during these three months that have emerged.
Yeah.
You know.
I will also say 2 quick ones, maybe education and gatekeeping. I think I've seen a lot more of gatekeeping when it comes to Black culture and us trying to keep that to ourselves. I feel like at times we're kind of a little nilly-willy when it comes to allowing others to have things that should be done to us, and other cultures have no problem gatekeeping for themselves. So I think that that's something that we should definitely start to do more.
Now, what's interesting for me, it's funny, I'm glad I did this, because what I didn't hear was race relations. And I'm wondering why, because the whole, Lady, so you want to say something before I get into that?
If gatekeeping is is a word that is kind of referencing that in a different kind of way. So
I don't know. So I'm asking. I didn't hear race relations. And I just want to know your thoughts about that, because this reckoning is about race, right? It's not, I mean, it has, this is a reckoning of race and, you know, and inequality and all of that sort of thing, but it wasn't on your initial list. So I'm just curious how you feel about that.
Well, I'll chime in on that. So I'm in a city, Dallas, Texas, that, you know, if you go downtown, it's definitely going to be a nice melting pot of culture. You'll see black people, you'll see white people supporting black people supporting white. You go a little further north in certain cities, it's still heavily segregated as far as not business and whatnot, but just the mentality. And you'll go places and you'll see kind of that good old boy mentality is still in play, where people are like, you know, they're exaggerating this thing, the whole Black Lives Matter. No, and you hear that, oh, all lives matter, you know, that kind of thing. And it's frustrating to see that, because again, that if a law changes and that person's in the seat of a judge or a policeman and they still have that mentality, it doesn't matter what the law changes, they still have that mentality. And so that's been frustrating for me on this side to see it, is that in some cases, it's a worse racial divide than even bringing people together. You know, there's batches of people that came together, but then there's still the bigger divide I'm seeing from where I'm at anyway.
Anybody else with their thoughts on the whole reckoning around race relations?
Yeah. Something that I've noticed is like the police kind of demographic doesn't really represent, usually doesn't represent the community that they like protect and serve, you know. And it's you're gonna have some, like, a big disconnect when you have an all-white police force, you know, policing a black community. And that's just something, I think that's just something that needs to change, really. And like, also, you know, a lot of police officers don't even live in the communities that they protect and serve, you know. And if you did live there inherently, like, I'd assume that you're going to care more about the place that you're protecting and serving.
Can I speak? Can I chime in for a second?
Sure. Absolutely.
I want to go along the lines of what was said earlier, when someone made mention, like, you know, the education piece where the money is getting, you know, funded, which is a good look. I just want to, you know, I think it starts with education, but transformation of that education to empower ourselves. I think that if we just educate, what happens is our education, the history behind it has been a kind of like a system to guide you in the way that we want you to stay in a certain place. And I think that if we can start looking at like real strategic ways of really, like, Alive and Free keeps it real 100. And so a lot of people don't get that. So you got a lot of thousands of soldiers out there who knows things and sees things from a different perspective, but it's very difficult to get that into everyone. And I think some of it ends up hurting ourselves, because our mentality is like, you know, you still rapping about your car and clothes when we trying to buy up the block. You know, you're still disrespecting my ladies. Like, we're beyond that right now. We need to be changing the mindset. So it's really still hard for me and to try to change, to moving forward, to try to kind of, you know, hopefully using this to change some attitudes.
Let me throw this in, and then you can, let me just throw this idea in. I mean, this whole society is built on the devaluing of Black folks. It's been that way from day one. I mean, period. And not just here, it's been colonialism and slavery, the whole bit. I mean, y'all just ain't nothing, period, right? Now, there's a whole issue of how much we bought ourselves. That's one issue. But what got everybody really into this and said it was different, it wasn't called Black people erupted. It was that white folks erupted. And there was this thing of what they call allyship, right? and I'm going to go into that a little bit further, but it was the chance that everybody was saying, you know, yeah, Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, really, Black Lives Matter, and we want to be part of this. And we are, you know, we're going to take our signs into little towns that don't even have no Black people, right? And we don't get our marches, and so we want to at least get white folks to understand, yes, that Black Lives Matter. Does that mean a lot to I mean, but I didn't hear that on it. I mean, is their mind changing a big part of this? I know, and I'm just curious about that because, you know, it wasn't on your list. And if in fact, in some places they are the faces, can I just say that? But in some places, you know, they are the faces of the movement. I mean, they're out front, right? So I'm just curious about how you feel about all of that. I just really, the whole issue of race relations, improving, not improving. I'm really curious about that.
Yeah, can I talk about that a little bit? So I feel like it's important to recognize that, like, we do have allies when it comes to this, but at the same time, I feel like we kind of have a problem of seeking approval from, I don't know if I can say this on the radio, but seeking approval from white people. And I don't know, I really felt like that when Kaepernick, when the NFL began to say Black Lives Matter for this situation, after Kaepernick had already been standing for it. Like, they really owed him an apology, you know? So I just feel like we are our only allies. So we don't really need to be seeking approval from others. But I mean, it's good to have that because they have power in a lot of different areas, so they can get the word out, they can donate and things like that. But when it comes to their mentality, we can't change that at all. So
okay, all right.
I want to address something you said earlier. You know, first, you know, like, nobody is threatened by anything that is weaker than them, right? Like, you don't devalue anything that is perceived as weaker than you, right? Like, you only devalue what you know is more powerful than you. You only attempt to devalue something that you're threatened by, right? You only claim something is weaker or you're supreme or superior than something that you actually are afraid of, right? So that's the way that we're treated and the way we've always been treated should show you exactly who you are. That's like the first sign of the power that you have, the fact that you're being devalued. That's one. Secondly, you know, I think that the quarantine really served a great deal in terms of, like, people being still and people being forced to see the realities that they're always, you know, distracted by or claim don't exist, or you know, they gaslight, folks gaslight and say, oh, that's just such and such. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. My grandparents came and they were immigrants and they worked themselves up to such and such. I didn't have any money. I just used my credit cards, and, you know, that kind of funded my business. You know, I think people are finally, white folks are finally still enough to see the realities that they exist in and some of the privileges that they benefit from. And I mean, look, the world was stuck inside and witnessed a live TV on murder, which I haven't seen. I refuse to watch that George Floyd.
Me too.
I've never seen it, and I don't plan to. But I think seeing that finally woke up the humanity that Lydia spoke so well of, and it just like, yo, there is no really, you know, you can see the whole play, right? Like, he didn't do anything. This is literally not right. And it spoke to their spirit, and it kind of woke them up, and it forced them to get up off the seat and do something. But had this quarantine not have my son just woke up. Had this quarantine not have existed, not have happened, then people would still be asleep.
I was talking to one of our alumni, Marcus Boynton, and he works for Apple. And he is inundated by the white folks at his job about what can we do? And I don't know if any of you have experienced any of that. What can we do? How do we make things better? And it reminds me, and it's funny, it reminds me of being, I went to all white school, right? And, you know, you're the one black kid in the class and they talk about race and they turn to you like, you got all of that. And so I'm telling, so it's on his shoulders now to figure out corporate America. But I just want to, anybody else want to say anything about this whole issue of race and race relations? Lydia, go ahead.
Oh, Kino, I beat you to the punch.
That's all good.
All right, I promise I'll share. Okay, everybody is not for us. We saw that at the beginning, and I hate to stir the pot, but actually I don't, right? But everybody is not for us. When we saw the outrage in its infancy stages, that was not us out there, causing havoc. Yet we bared a lot of the consequences for what was happening, right? And people were acting out of rage, out of ignorance, and it's always the finger being pointed at us. So, for those reasons and more, everyone is not an ally. One of the things that I see that is really interesting to me now is how the Black Lives Matter movement is being used as a marketing ploy, right? Because we are so marketable. We are the original people. We set the standard for liberation. And now everyone's looking to us to ask, what did we do wrong? When there is an entire blueprint of how this country has done wrong by our people, right? We see it in recruitment. I'm not sure how many people are looking for jobs, but you've probably had a non-Black recruiter reach out to you because they're trying to fill a seat. Dr. Marshall, you spoke about, people turning to you, asking you, what your perspective is. That tokenism, it happens every day. I think it's important to remember that everyone is not for us, and to also remember that we don't have to always educate others. I know this conversation for many may be enlightening, but I will say, at times it is exhausting to always be holding up a mirror to somebody. That mirror gets heavy after a while. Sometimes, like Enitan said, we have to sit in silence. And like the collegians have said, we just have to allow people to have an order of respect and that be followed. The last thing I'll add is, when it does come to allies, I think there is strategy that needs to be implemented with those orders of respect. I know oftentimes when I'm on the front line, I have my camera, I'm chanting, I'm running to the front and to the back and waiting for orders. But it is important for non-Black people to be on the front lines. It should not always be us being arrested when we're trying to fundraise for bail as well. Like, how does that work, right? We have to be strategic, and it is important for allies to listen, right? I have seen so many movements be infiltrated, right? Just doing my research on history. But even now, there was an experience with my alumni association at Columbia. And there was some really interesting conversations happening about who was going to lead this movement for more tenured Black professors and diversity, inclusion, and equity, and all these buzzwords, right? And I saw my white counterparts come up, and it was almost like me. And I was like, wait, this is not, I guess I can't say this on the radio, but it's not a peeing competition, right? But there are so many people competing to outdo us. And, we are the original, so we should allow others to follow suit. And hopefully that's what we'll see more of.
To your point, it actually came to a head in Portland, if I remember, if I read correctly. There was a group of white women who were sort of, I guess, standing in between, I forget their name, and the Black folks, and then they had an argument. I mean, it became, the Black folks said, wait a minute, look, we started this thing, and it's just, watching all the stuff play out is just it's beyond fascinating. I mean, all of us, I think, want this thing to be productive. And so I think that's really why, Clarence Jones wrote this letter, in terms of being constructive criticism about this whole thing. I will say that I have stepped out, and I've talked to a lot of white folks. I have, on purpose. I said, I'm gonna go out and I wanted them to know how I felt. And not that I represented all Black folks, but because I'm in a bunch of organizations. I'm a Black organization, I'm a white organization, I'm in all kinds of organizations. And I want to know how I felt. And I said, this is how I'm feeling. And, and I remember at some point, and actually I titled the whole thing An Honest Conversation on Race. That's what I did. Honestly, I'm gonna tell you, and then you can tell me. And the conversation so far has only been one way because it's me telling them and I ain't got their feedback, or it's been in Zoom and so on and so forth. But I remember one question that got me, and it says something about, what do you owe us? Or what do we owe each other? And I said, I looked right at the guy and said, I only owe you the truth. I was like, I only owe the truth. Now, what you do with the truth, that's on you, right? And I love your comment about, I'm not responsible for your family, but I'm just responsible for telling you the truth. Now, if you don't believe the truth, so if I tell you, you tell me Abraham Lincoln was a great emancipator, and I tell you, yeah, but 2 years before, he wanted to send black people out the country, right? And I quote the words, and you can't deal with the truth. Don't get mad. What's the movie, the Tom Cruise movie, right, with Jack Nicholson? He said, you can't handle the truth. And I don't know how much of this truth that, this country can bear. Because, that's part of this whole race relations thing to me, at least to me, is telling folks the truth. Tino, you want to jump in and say something?
Yeah, real quick, because you made a good point, and I wanted to just jump on that. I went to, Northern Arizona University, pretty much a, all white school. And one of the problems that I've been having is people that looks like me, but don't really relate. And so sometimes my guys I play with on the football team, they'll say, well, they thought I was kind of closer to their mentality because we were getting along as teammates. And there's a lot of guys who will help encourage our European and white counterparts that in the wrong direction because they don't understand themselves. So not only was I having an issue with my white teammates, I was also having a problem with some of my African American black teammates who also kind of more so saw like where black people are killing themselves and black people need to be doing this and black people, because sometimes once you go to certain colleges and you get a certain you get around a certain circle, sometimes that can impact your thought process too. Or if you grew up in a certain environment, so sometimes you'll get a group of white people who will go to that black guy and he may be of color, but he still might not be conscious of the struggle. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's one of the problems that I had. So I lost a lot of friends because I was like, no, I'm from Oakland, but I'm really from Oakland though, for real. Like seminary, you need to know that I had parents that helped raise me right, but I still understand where I came from, who I am and whose I am. So it was the dynamic with not just people who were white, but I had issues with some people who look like me as well.
Anybody else?
All your skin folk ain't your kinfolk, man. Yeah, that's a lesson that you got to learn. I think we all, we're not a monolithic people, and we all kind of have these different backgrounds, and it's tricky to navigate because again, you see this and automatically you assume family, right? And that's the case, but culturally sometimes we have differences, you know what I mean? And that's difficult to navigate in this because there's folks who are waving a different flag even still in this moment, and it's super frustrating. But I think we waste our time trying to bring on those who don't want to be brought, you know what I mean? And we should just kind of extend our generosity and our love to those who, to them as well, but more intentionally to those who are receiving it and are down to learn and listen.
Go ahead, Vic.
Well, I was just going to say, I did have probably the week of George Floyd's murder, I had a young lady that I'm connected with on LinkedIn who's actually of Indian descent reach out to me and was like, hey, I just wanted to reach out. I hope this doesn't come across wrong, but I wanted to reach out to you as a black man. I see you doing a lot of positive posts on LinkedIn all the time. And I know you're going through it because the black man is kind of getting beat down right now. This whole incident was horrible. What can I do? Just like you said, people approaching me, what can I do? And what I told her was, first of all, thank you for reaching out. I don't know if I've ever had anybody acknowledge me as a black man for the pain that all of my other brothers have gone through. but thank you for that. But two, the fact that what you can do is continue to promote myself and other Black people, other people of color that you know that are doing positive things. Put our stuff out there, share our stuff, communicate to the other people in your network and your white, Indian, Asian, whatever other culture you're in. Share some of these success stories of our people. So, because, you know, I'll admit it, you know, I grew up in the 90s and I used to love watching Cops, and I used to laugh at all them crackheads getting beat up and all that stuff. But you got to remember, it's other white people and people that are my age that were watching that, and they think that's what Black men do, that we're crackheads, that we run and we try to lie and steal and cheat and stuff like that. So we could help other people, not necessarily that we're looking for their approval, but just they have kids in their houses that are 5, 15, 25, whatever years old, and they're gonna have jobs that'll impact us all. And so we can kind of change their perception. I think that's something that we need their help from the other cultures, is that teach your family and your kids that blackness is not something evil, something to fear. It's actually something that's just as beautiful as you look at your culture as.
Lady Sal, you want to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to say, just because there's been a lot said and a lot of power and brilliance on this call tonight. I'd like to say that I'd like to see our people to stop killing our people too. You know, and so whenever I hear, yeah, but Black people, there's still Black on Black crime. Yeah, there is. And I hate it when I hear it and see it. I'd like to see white people stop killing white people. I like to see white people stop killing Black people. What I really like to see is for white people to see Black people as people and not the lies that have been told and the way we have as a people been depicted. And like somebody said earlier, it's the truth that needs to be shared and shown and said without, how do we say, unapologetically Black?
Mm-hmm.
I am let me say that really slowly. Unapologetically Black is what I am. And so, like many of you who've been asked and called on, you know, talk to us, help us understand race and racism. And I don't mind having the conversation, because I am one who is going to paint a clear picture with vivid colors. And I will show the picture of the Black man who went to vote, and he ended up hanging from a tree and surrounded by white people who were there taking pictures. And then I'll tell the story that that's how those pictures were then put on postcards and sent out as celebrations. And so when I hear about Blacks are dangerous, but then when I see a Black guy and he's looking like, yeah, well, we know that there is a look. And let me just tell you a story about somebody that almost robbed me, except for the Spirit of God that I listened to and turned and went the other way. And it was a white man, and he was dressed in the, just going to leaving Whole Foods in his regular clothes. He didn't have a look that looked like he was dangerous, but he was. So when we look at people, we need to see people for who people are, and then we need to make sure that everybody knows the truth and the whole truth and the whole story, and that American history story is really American history and includes the good, the bad, and the ugly. So when I'm talking to my white counterparts, I will let them know that as far as I'm concerned, and I'm the only Black one on the Zoom, I'm the one that's in danger. When we look at history, when we look at what's been happening in the news, when you listen to and look at the Karens, when you watch and see a white man who's intelligent, educated, and he is spitting on a 3-year-old. Really? So, you know, what needs to change? Because we have that destructive part in human beings of every ethnicity. You don't hear about the Asians, how they shoot up Chinatown, but they do. You don't hear about the Latinos that shoot up the mission, but they do. You hear about the African Americans that shooting up Hunter's Point, but you don't hear about all the others. And you don't hear about the white people that's, you know, unless it's just depends. They shooting up the schools, you know, so let's tell the story and then let's stop with that destructive, the lies. And we can't stop people from lying, can we? But what we can do is be all that we can be. And we still have that to deal with, the people who've decided. But when we show, yeah, but this, guess what? Race, that word didn't come into play until it became convenient, economically convenient. Race was referring to groups, people who spoke a certain language, a race of people who spoke, you know, and it didn't talk about the color. Race had nothing to do with color until it became an economic thing. So, yeah, a lot's come up for me: hurt, anger, upset, and waiting for people to have the courage, not just to say Black lives matter, but to continue with what and the reason they need to matter. Because for hundreds of years they have not. And these are human beings. They could start with that Constitution, take that 3/5 crap out. But then I've taken enough time.
Yeah, all of this stuff, I think everything that we've talked about has been raised, brought to the forefront with the death of George Floyd. All of it, everything. And the difficult thing, and I will say difficult thing, because I think it is difficult, is that I don't know that the movement can deal with all of this or should deal with all of this. Movements have their own, that's why it's a movement. It moves at its own course, its own pace. I asked about the themes because I wanted to know from you, from this group here, what themes are important to you, because I'm going to get to the question of down the road. What would you like to see come out of this, the results? What's feasible and what's not feasible? One thing we know about this particular, unlike the civil rights movement, this is in many cases a leaderless movement, although they have people. You don't have somebody in LA doing something that I know that people in different places, but it's not, you don't have a Dr. King figure or an SCLC figure. You don't have a Stokely Carmichael or, an H. Rap Brown. You don't have that. And for some folks, this was intentional, although there are personalities. And just looking at it 3 months into it, I guess, one thing we could point to tangibly with the civil rights movement is that it did desegregate a town. It did. I mean, it had certain goals that it wanted to do, and it did accomplish that. I don't know that we've agreed with this, what we want to accomplish. Probably the police is probably the most finite thing, and that's a whole thing in and of itself, because then there are discussions about how to best deal with that. I think everybody talks about the police that we just want you to all stop killing Black folks, right? But to do that, certain things have to happen. Do you defund? Do you dismantle? Do you try and reform? That's a whole discussion, right? There's a discussion of who leads in that effort. If that's our goal. I've heard entrepreneurship is a relationship. I guess I'm not so much concerned that, and I think either Kino said it, and I've heard this also, that, and then there's a whole issue of healing the Black community, which I don't know is even part of this, It may be that we realize that has to be done because of this, because of what's going on. So I guess 15 years from now, 20 years from now, because what did we hear when it started? I heard this from a line. We all tried and it didn't work. Well, that was, I think, very unfair for a lot of reasons. But that's, I can remember being in Nashira's position, running the BSU at my school, starting to be at my school, and had tangible goals. And we made a lot of things happen at that school. The problem is that I graduated. And, what fire I brought to the situation, the next group didn't necessarily have that. We didn't institutionalize it. So obviously there's a lot of pain here. There's also been this hope here, and we haven't even talked about, I heard, who did I hear? Who's the woman that writes for the New York Times that did the wonderful article on the 1619 Project? I can't think of her name. I got all her stuff. God, I can't think of her name. But she brought up the whole issue of what I call the 40 acres and a mule that we never got, which would be a reparation. So I guess for you, what do we want to see come out of this whole thing? And what's actually and knowing that even what we say, because it can move in places that we don't have any control over, really don't. Which is, in the end, I may advise you to do what you think is best. But Nicole Hannah-Jones, thank you. Nicole Hannah-Jones. What do you want to see? What do you want to see come out of this? What? And I will start with the police. The police for me is a big thing because I was on the police commission. And I know that in itself is hard to crack. It's very difficult to do. And I said this before, there are 18,000 police departments in the United States. There's no centralized policing. There's no nationalized policing. Some people say tear it down completely. Some people say reform it, and some people say defund it. So for me, policing is a big deal because that's what got us here right now. If you think of Ahmaud Arbery, that's a whole different thing. That wasn't police. That was just white folks killing a brother. So, because it's always black life. I mean, this is alive and free, and black life do matter. So just go ahead, jump into it. What do you want to see out of this?
Well, Dr. Marshall, I would say for sure, obviously the policing is the number one. So we're moving beyond that. Then I like what Nashira said, seeing us kind of being more self-sufficient, operate more in our own space, and taking more control of our own business situation, our community. And what that means to me is being more active in the local voting situation, realizing that the school board is an elected vote, knowing that, judges are elected officials, the Board of Appeals, these are all local things that have you have a lot more control over to be able to control as a business owner, as a homeowner, as a taxpayer, as a father, as a husband. All of these things matter in my community. So let's not get distracted by the big national, election that we're talking about. Let's get involved in our local elections. I think that's the biggest thing that I would like to see, and the entrepreneur aspect of it, so we could cut that wealth gap down drastically. But those would be the things I would like to see as a community.
Your thoughts? What would you like to see? What do you want to see come out of this whole effort?
I think what I would like to see right now is just a whole cleaning out of the closet. We've already exposed that the closet is dirty. It's got a lot of trash. It needs a lot of remodeling. And I really would like to see a whole slew of, revamping everything that we've already, not everything, but making it inclusive. I would like to see what would the education system actually look like from this point moving forward. I would like to see more equality. I would like to see things like African Americans owning sports teams. I mean, I would like to see a whole change, and I would like to see us being displayed in a way that's being displayed. I mean, from the elementary school through the social media, and try to help to change the mindset that over years and years that we have been, depicted to be something that we're not. So I really would like for us to clean everything out and then have us coming together to help put things back together as much as we possibly could with and understanding that we're trying to clean up 500 plus years you know, of stuff. So that, I mean, from police to buildings to everything. When I see a little man, he's supposed to be able to tell me about the true story of Rosa Parks. You know, the real stuff, like not the, you know, that kind of thing. I would like to shake hands with my peoples who got businesses, and imagine if, you know, you know, I don't know that, but that's what I would like to see.
Go ahead, jump in, Malcolm.
Yes, I mean, as far as, you know, cleaning a house, specifically, you know, with the police, I like to see, you know, like maybe a more, like the police should have like an education like specific to being an officer, like before they're, you know, they're able to do so, or like they have to pass psychological tests. Like there's no way you could be in the right mindset if you're able to lean on another human being's neck for nearly 9 minutes. Yeah. You know, and apparently, I think Derek Chauvin was his name. Mm-hmm. Apparently, he had some, you know, some bad history in a different precinct. Right. You know, if you do have that type of history, you know, why should you be able to be hired, you know, elsewhere as a police officer? And I think Victor said something about voting earlier, and that made me think of like a lot of people my age. They're just like, I know this is a little off topic, but it just made me think of like a lot of people my age are just convinced that their votes don't matter. And I think
that's not off topic.
But yeah, it's just, I've heard so much talk about it, you know, about how they already decided, you know, who's going to win. It's just like, my vote doesn't matter. And my whole thing is like, man, how could you, like, you know your history? Like, how could you have your ancestors fight, die, get tarred and feathered, drugged by cars and whatnot, know all that, and still not want to vote? You know, it's just, it's crazy to me. So, yeah, I think there should be more education on that to get more Black youth to go and vote.
Okay, what would you like to see come out of this?
And not only that, I want to add to Malcolm, man, make sure you let them know that that's by design. It's by design that they believe that their vote doesn't count. It actually does. And if it doesn't, why not give it a shot anyway? You know what I mean? Like, man, if please get me in front of some Gen Zers. Somebody get me in front of a bunch of Gen Zers, because we got to get cats out to mobilize to vote, man. Like, it's there is no other option. Like, I don't have tolerance for that. Anyway, for me, man, like, you know, I mean, I wrote a book, you know, in 2007, 2008, because it didn't exist. You know, I wrote something that I wanted to see. And I learned then that, you know, it's important for me to give what I need, right? Like, so in other words, for me to be the solution. So I think, like, what I want to see is everybody throw all that they have, you know, to their specific gift, right? To their specific purpose in this moment. So, you know, whether that's like, you know, teaching about finance, you know, teaching the community about finance, whether that's, you know, writing or covering the stories, you know, whether that's like being in the streets, whether that's being in the corporate space and fighting, you know, like, I think, you know, the protest and the fight looks different from different perspectives. And I think we should all really just, you know, like, now is the time, you know what I mean? Like, whatever we were waiting on before, and whatever courses we were taking and books we were reading, or inspiration we were looking for, paintings we were looking at, or courses we were going to, or conferences or conventions or whatever, like, now's the time to like throw all that at this, you know, like, this is one of the most historic moment of our lives, and we're all here intentionally on purpose. We're not just here by happenstance. Like, we all exist with our gifts in this moment for a reason. Yeah. So I think we just gotta like really double down on everything that we stand for and everything that we're about, and throw it at this monster, because you can't just defeat it. You know, you can't just break the arm of racism. You gotta cut off the head, you gotta poke out the eye, you gotta rip out the heart, and that takes a bunch of soldiers coming in from different arenas, and that takes Black folks and white folks, and, you know, so I think what I want to see is everybody doubling down on their gifts.
I got that. Okay, anybody else? What would you like to see come out of this?
I can go. I would like to see more of us writing our own narratives. We know that the media has so much control over the way that we are portrayed. And I feel like, I don't know, maybe we need our own media outlet, our own news outlet, so that we are presenting stories about ourselves. And like I said, just controlling the narrative. And also, I think his name is Victor, he mentioned a really good point about voting locally, and changing these laws that are literally created to harm us. And I was talking to Dr. M about this the other day, but like the USPS situation, that really should be the biggest news story right now. And I mean, I don't know if I should explain it, but basically, the USPS, they're going to be running out of money soon, and USPS are usually located in low-income neighborhoods. Like, they're a place where people in prison can write, like an outlet for people in prison who can write letters, and people who are voting through mail because they don't want to go in to vote due to the pandemic, their votes will most likely be counted in late and won't be counted towards the election. So if you are voting by mail, just make sure you are voting early. And it's something that the president is well aware of, and he's not doing anything to prevent this. Like, this is a tactic he is using to stay in office. And I feel like we should spread more education about that. But sorry, that was a little bit of a tangent, but yeah, just voting locally and early and knowing that our votes do count.
So well said. Nashira, oh my goodness, I'm gonna adopt you. Oh my gosh. Okay. So aside from my adoption, I agree, right? We most definitely need to remain politically engaged. Like Enitan said, this is all by design, not default. You know, I am such an optimist and I'm such a lover. I'm like, we need more Black love. I want more Black families and healthy Black structures, so that we can raise up the children, right, and pour back. I also think that we need a multi-generational love campaign. We need to listen to one another. And then, of course, as a member of the media, I am intentional about educating others on media literacy. And I think literacy is just as important of a conversation as ownership of the media. It is not enough for us to be willing to grab the microphone, right, but not know how to communicate. I was speaking with this woman, her name is Shirley Tolliver, and she said, you cannot be woke and not know how to communicate. And I was like, okay, if there was a mic, she would have dropped it. And it is so key, right? When these reporters show up to our neighborhoods to get our sound bites, we need to be able to communicate what's going on in our neighborhoods. We need to know how to be able to speak in a way that is persuasive, that allows them to stay longer. And then to, you know, each of you all's points, we do need to learn how to tell our own stories. I think that comes with literacy. 90% of the media is owned by 6 major corporations, and that says a lot, right? I've worked for Black publications and worked throughout different mediums and for different companies, but more of us have to learn how to tell our stories on the local level. So when the reporters show up, when it is something that we need to communicate in the hair salon, the nail salon, the barber shop, on our block, wherever it may be, we need to be able to tell our stories ourselves. So I agree, and those are the things that I love to see: more Black love, more multi-generational conversations, and us owning our narrative.
Thank you. Anybody who hasn't had a chance themselves to say what they'd like to see come out of this? I'll have one more for me. And I'm doing this because after working all these years with young people, the awakening, I'll use the word awakening, I have seen from them learning the truth about their history and their culture. And this is gonna be a war, because everybody's being taught misinformation. Everybody. You go to school, no matter where you get, you ain't gonna get the truth. If you don't stumble on, you know, a Black studies class, and it's not gonna happen while you're in high school. If you don't stumble on a book, if you don't stumble on you know, and I will use this phrase, what's really been going on, you're basically walking around in an untruth and a fog, and that dictates what you do. I know one of the things that Hannah Nicole Jones is advocating is let's definitely change the curriculum in the schools. because everybody suffers from that. Everybody suffers from not knowing the truth. Everybody suffers from, you know, and it's not just the individual facts, you know, of, yeah, Thomas Jefferson didn't really do this. Don't say it's the whole thrust of everything. I think things were set up in a certain way, and you know, I think, and that's going to be tough because I mean, white people are going to be taught the truth, and they're not going to want. They don't want to change that. I mean, so this is, and then when they say culture war, I guess that's part of the whole culture war. I'd like to see that come out of this. All these things that we said, I don't know that this particular movement has its focus on, and that's okay. But we can individually have our focuses on things that all play a part in this. What's that? What one of the rules for living we have at Alive and Free is: you want things to change, change begins with you. And that's what leads to all of our actions. The truth is that Black lives have been under siege forever. And we're under siege from, you know, and I will say we're under siege, you know, from white folks, the dominant society, we're under siege, and from the police, and we're under siege from Black folks. So I don't know if we can get Black lives to matter to all of those folks in this. It'll be, I call this a marathon struggle for, to make our lives matter. But the first thing they got to do is they got to matter to us. And I know my work, what I do is dictated by Black lives mattering to me. Absolutely. And so consequently, I won't do things that other brothers will do. I never wanted to sell dope because I said, no, man, hell no. That ain't Black lives matter. That means that's money. And that's slavery. That's money. So if we can just take that, for me, if we can just take that phrase and make it matter to us, if each individual person can take that phrase and really matters to us, we might have a chance in this reckoning. But I also know the formula, what we're up against. We're up against a system that has been devaluing Black lives forever. So it's not going to be easy. But I don't want us to get defeated. See, that's the thing. See, when we get and I always say that the work has to be done when the cameras are gone, you know, when there's nobody there, you know, when there's nobody pat you on the back. That's why I love Harriet Tubman so much. Harriet Tubman's like, yeah, I'm gonna do this. Y'all ain't gotta go with me. Black Lives Matter. I'm gonna get out. I'm gonna take out slaves, and you know, and that's a mindset to me. And as we watch these things develop, my thoughts are, don't, you know, stay with the mindset. To me, stay with the mindset, and we'll see what happens. Lady Estelle, your thoughts, and then we'll sort of wrap this up.
I like.
I
ditto to what everyone has said. To use your gifts, and really use your gifts to make a difference. Using your gifts will make a difference. Black lives need to matter to each of us, and then those whose lives we touch. Yeah, this is just one of those things that we have to endure. We've got to see it through. I'm one who doesn't believe in deciding how it's going to be. Just to keep doing the work. Like Lydia says, she's such a lover. And I'm one of those who believes in unity, humanity, helping one another, sticking together, valuing each other, and let that show in everything that we do, in everything that we say to everybody, especially us, especially with each of us, with my people. So with that, I want to thank all of you for your gifts, for your time, for all that you've done tonight and all that you're going to do, the things we see and the things that we'll probably never see. But just like Dr. Marshall said, nobody has to be there. Just do the work because it's a part of who we are. It's how we're made. It's the magic that we bring, and we need to bring the magic. We need to do it.
And you also know that we got your back. We got your back. You here on this call because we're not all related, but we're all family. But we are family. We believe that completely. Anybody knows me and Lydia still, that's what we are. We got your family. So, and I will say that somebody messes with you. I don't care what they look like, I don't care who they are. We got your back. We got your back. And I just want to thank you for your life because, you know, from my collegians to everybody else out there listening, you know, this is a struggle, and you're willing to engage in the struggle, and that's what's the most important thing to me. You're willing to engage in the struggle, not necessarily knowing how it's gonna come out, knowing that we're gonna continue to struggle because for you, Black lives do matter. Anybody got a last thing to say? I know it's so late back there. It's so late back there. Go right ahead, sir.
I just want to add one last thing. Like, it is a struggle. It is difficult. It is uncertain in the moment. But one thing is for sure is that we win, and that's already written. So I just want us to know that the story has been told, the story has been written, and the victors have been decided. We just must endure, and it may not be your lifetime, my lifetime, but we do win.
I like that. Anybody else? Well, when you get down and you get weary, I will pick you up. Y'all get down as you want. Look, this got you. Look, there's a phone. This call, Doc. I'm feeling not. Come on, man. Look, that. Hey, Lydia, you know, we cheerleaders. I'm the best cheer. Look, we Alive and Free is a cheerleader. Period. And
We
just
believe
thank all of you. You are. We love you. That's period. It's all about love.